Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well today. So today I have a very exciting sewing project to work on. I cannot wait to get started. It's a Friday evening and I'm going to have a wild Friday night of sewing. I just got back from Joann's and I'm about to get started. So let me show you what I'm going to be working on today. So my birthday is coming up next week, and if you know me, you know I love a theme and I love getting dressed up for special occasions. So of course I love to have a birthday dress. So I thought that's what we would make today. I'm going to do a birthday dress and I got a very special fabric for the occasion. I have been eyeing this fabric since it released, but it is a bit pricey, so I held off for a while, but I finally decided to splurge and get this beautiful bow bouquet fabric from the Liberty of London Bridgerton collection. I think it is so beautiful. I love the colors in this and I'm so excited to sew with it today. It definitely was not cheap, but I decided this would be my birthday present to myself. So I'm very excited about it. And if you do decide you want to check out this collection as well, they did do like a first order coupon code. So if you sign up, hopefully that's still a thing, so I'll link to it down below. This collection is absolutely gorgeous and I cannot wait to sew with this today. This is a cotton lawn and I'm going to be making a vintage gunny sacks pattern. I cannot wait to get started on this. I'm going to do the maxi dress here and I just love the style of this. I love vintage gunny sacks looks. I have a gunny sacks shirt on today that I got off of eBay. And I love the kind of prairie elements, the lace, the floral prints. So I thought this would be so fun to use this fabric for. And then because it's a gunny sacks dress, it needs lace and ribbon. So I got this little floral trim from Joann's. This was on clearance for like $2.49, I think, a yard. And then I also got this blue double-faced satin ribbon that I think will look really nice and kind of bring out more of those blue tones. I found this pattern along with another vintage gunny sacks pattern at a local vintage shop, and I was so excited that I bought both of them, but neither of them are actually my size. So I need to grade this pattern up 2 sizes. And I don't think it's going to be too difficult because it is a pretty easy fitting pattern. It's gathered in the bodice, so I don't think it will be too hard. But if you're interested in learning a little bit more about pattern grading or pattern drafting, I have a class recommendation for you over on Skillshare, who are very kindly sponsoring today's video. The class is called Grading Pattern Making Manual, and the teacher of this class actually has several other pattern making classes on Skillshare that I have taken over the years and have learned a lot from. So I'd really recommend them if you're interested in getting into making your own patterns. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Skillshare, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts across categories such as film, productivity, graphic design, and so much more. And I don't know about where you live, but here this summer has been so hot. So I've been enjoying spending a little bit of time inside taking classes on Skillshare. I've worked through some pattern making classes like the one I mentioned earlier, and also a latte art class, which I really enjoyed and helped me up my latte art skills a lot. There's so many options on Skillshare and I know you'll find something that is great for you. Now, the first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, and you could definitely get through one class in a month's time. So it's a great opportunity to try Skillshare out and see what you think of it. I am so excited to continue learning with the Skillshare community this summer. There's so many classes I still have my eye on. I hope you will be excited to learn with them too. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Now it is time to get started on the sewing project. I am going to make a muslin for the bodice because since I'm grading this, I want to make sure that it fits properly and not cut into my $40 a yard fabric without knowing it's going to turn out okay. So we're going to do that, but before I get started, I think we need to make a little coffee and then it will be time to start sewing. Okay, well that's a little bit funky, but it's something. Also, can we appreciate that the ribbon theme from the fabric carries through to the cup today? I feel very coordinated. So the pattern pieces I'm going to use to make the fitting muslin are just a few. So here's what the bodice front looks like. And this piece is cut out on the fold, so you can see there's a lot of ease here because it will be gathered. And then the same thing with the back, though this one is split down the back for a zipper. And then the 2 most important pieces for the fit are the waistband pieces. There's a front and back piece here. So this is where it's going to make the most difference to the size, since everything else is pretty fluid with the rest of the dress. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the size and cut these out of some scrap fabric, and we will see how it works. Okay, upon rating my fabric stash, we're using an old bed sheet for both the muslin and the lining today. A bit of poor planning on my part because I just had to charge my camera battery for a little bit, but while I did that, I went ahead and assembled my little muslin of the bodice and tried that on, and then I deconstructed that, and I'm going to use it for both the lining, and I also used it to cut out the main part, used it as a fabric pattern. So I've cut out the bodice here, and I'm ready to get started sewing this together, so let me show you how we're going to start. So here's the bodice front, and you can see I wanted that bow bouquet front and center here. I think that looks so pretty. I'm just in love with this fabric, and I'm going to start by sewing the side seams with the right sides together. Because this is lined, I don't have to worry about finishing these seams here, so I'm just going to sew the side seams on both the outside and the lining of the bodice. So now I'm ready to go ahead and sew these side seams, and after I sew the lining and the outside side seams, I'm going to attach the lining to the outer part of the dress at the underarm with the right sides together. I'm going to do this a little bit different than the pattern instructions. One thing that I don't always love about vintage patterns is the way they finish the inside of the garment. So the way that this one says to do it in the instructions is just to sew the lining pieces, baste them to each of the outside pieces, and then treat it all as one piece. And what I don't like about that is then you end up with all of those layers of fabric inside the garment, and you have to use either your serger or zigzag or whatever to finish the edges inside. So I would prefer to have everything just encased, so that's what I'm going to do. I just understitched that underarm, and I feel like understitching always makes everything look so nice and neat. Okay, so this is all sewn together, and I think it looks so nice and neat on these underarm seams, so I'm happy about that. And now I'm going to go ahead and add gathering stitches to the bottom of the bodice. I'm going to do this in two separate layers, so both on the outer bodice and the lining. And then while I am at the sewing machine, if I can find those pieces, where'd they go? Oh, over here. And then while I'm at the sewing machine, I'm going to go ahead and sew the side seams on the waistband. So I'll do this both for the outer fabric and for the lining. That way I'm ready to add everything together once I gather up my gathering threads. Alright, so here is where we are currently at. So I have the waistband attached, and one thing I will probably do after I add the zipper to the back of the dress later on is to stitch these layers together just so nothing is too unstable. And then here is the inside. Everything is nice and tidy, and I'm ready to move on to the next step. Now, before I move on to the ruffle, one thing that I just realized from reading the pattern instructions is that the zipper is set in below the top of the dress. Since this has elastic at the top, there's actually a small seam right here. So I'm going to sew that little seam in the back on both layers just separately. And then I'm going to sew all of the side seams together on my ruffle pieces, which I will show you in just a second. Okay, I just quickly stitched that together off of camera, but you can see there's just a small seam here and then it's open below that for the zipper later on. So now we can move on to joining all of the ruffle pieces together. There are 3 of these that are joined in a circle. I think I'm going to use French seams just to keep there from being any raw edges. I don't know. I just think this fabric is so nice. It deserves it. So we're going to do that. So I will go ahead and sew those seams and then be right back to show you the loop of fabric. Okay, so now the real fun can begin. We get to start playing around with the ribbon and lace. So the first thing I'm going to do is to sew the lace to the bottom of the ruffle. And I was thinking about it. The way that the pattern says to do it is to sew the lace so that the fabric is folded towards the inside, but it seems like it would make sense to sew it so that the fabric folds out towards the outside. So sewing it like this and then pressing this up so that that ribbon then just covers up any raw edges. I think that will work. So that's what I'm going to try. And I'm excited to see how it looks all together. Okay, so far so good. I think that worked. So now I'm going to add the blue ribbon and I'm going to go ahead and pin this in place just to help me have a little bit more control, and then I will stitch on either side of the ribbon so that everything is really secure. I love how this brings out more of the dusty blues in this really bold fabric. Okay, I got a little carried away and sewed all of the ribbon on off camera, but I think it looks so pretty. I feel like in the very best way, this is looking like an 80s or 90s curtain, and I'm not mad about that. So I've gone ahead and marked the center front and center back on both the bodice and the ruffle. And now I can go ahead and attach these together. So the way this is done, it's sewed together with the wrong side of the ruffle facing the right side of the bodice. And I'm just going to pin these together and then stitch along the top on both of the front and back of the bodice. Okay, now the entire top of this gets turned into an elastic casing. So I've trimmed the inner layer, but not the outer layer of fabric. I'm going to turn this in 1/4 of an inch, and then there's a line marked on the pattern that says fold for casing. So I'm just going to fold it in basically so that this seam that we sewed on the outside goes to the inside of the garment. This goes all the way around the entirety of the ruffle so that we can add elastic to the whole top of the dress. Okay, so the casing is now sewn in place, as you can see, and now I'm ready to add my elastic. So I cut this according to the elastic guide, but adjusting for the size that I'm making. So just to make sure that it works out okay, I'm going to try this on before I stitch the elastic together. I'll just safety pin it together and make sure everything's good. So I'm going to go ahead and add this now. right, when I tried on the bodice to check the elastic, I got so excited because it looks so cute. Also, I'm cooking dinner if you hear anything sizzling in the background. So I added the first set of shoulder ties on one side, and I thought I'd show you how to make these. So it's just a very simple strip of fabric that we're going to sew into a tube and then turn right side out. I did turn this edge under after I stitched it and turned it just to make it a little bit easier, and then I'll just tack those down by hand later. So really quickly, I'm going to stitch these up, and then we will have a finished bodice once I attach these. Alright, so the bodice is done, and I think this is my cue to take a little break and have dinner, and then I'll be back to work on the skirt, but I am loving it so far. Okay, so now I'm ready to move on to the skirt, and the skirt on this project is very simple. It's just 2 back panels and a front panel, so I'm going to stitch all of these together, and then just like we had that ruffle piece on the bodice, there's also a ruffle section that goes at the hem of the skirt, so I will sew that into a loop in the same way I did for the bodice. So it's time to just do a lot of straight seams and get these stitched together. So I just assembled all of the ruffle pieces into a circular little tube, and now I'm going to add lace all around the bottom of the ruffle. Then I can gather up the top and attach this to the skirt. Okay, the ruffle is now assembled with the lace, and then I also assembled those skirt panels. So all of this is ready to be put together, but I'm getting kind of tired, so I'm gonna call it a night here. And then tomorrow I will assemble the skirt and attach it to the bodice. I cannot wait to see how it looks all together. All right, hi friends, it is the next day now, and I have been itching to get working on this dress. I went to a family event this morning, and I have just been so excited to sew. So I'm ready to get this skirt put together, and I can't wait to see how it's going to look attached to the bodice. So let me show you where we're at. So I have the skirt pieces all assembled. So there is the front panel and then the 2 back panels. There's a back seam, but then it's split for the zipper. And I also went ahead and added my gathering threads to the top of this. So this is all ready to go. And then for the ruffle piece, I have this all sewn into a nice loop, and it has the lace trim on the edges. And then I also have gathering threads added to this. So what I'm going to start with is pulling up the gathering threads and adding them to the skirt. Then there's a little bit of ribbon trim to do before we add the skirt to the dress. There's also a lining for this section, which I have not started on yet, so I'll work on that here in a little bit. But I really want to see how it all looks put together, so I'm going to start with the fun part. I just realized I still have my sunglasses on from being outside. So I'm going to get started putting the skirt together, and let's see how this goes. seam is going to be covered up with the ribbon, I opted to do wrong sides together so that I can just trim this away, and then I will sew the ribbon over that seam. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the gathering threads, and then we can add the ribbon, which is so much fun. I'm excited. So here's how the ribbon looks now that it's sewn on. I used blue thread on the outside and then kept the bobbin white so that everything would be pretty seamless. And you can see here's how it looks on the inside. So I think that turned out really nicely. And now I'm ready to move on to attaching the skirt to the bodice. Okay, so the dress is now put together. So I'm going to work on the lining for a few minutes. I think I'll do this off camera because it's really just kind of boring. All the lining is a skirt that is a little bit longer than the original skirt piece because it goes all the way down to where the ruffle is. So it'll be really quick to put together. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and then I'll be back to do more embellishment. Alright, the dress is lined and I've gone ahead and added an invisible zipper, and now we are ready to move on to the last two machine sewing steps of this whole project. So I'm going to add the ribbon as the pattern instructs. So this is going across the waistband on both the top and bottom, just on the front pieces, so it'll end at the seam. And then I've gone ahead and prepared these little waist ties, and I love this, it's like pointed at the end. And so these will be attached here at the side seam and go towards the back on the other side of the ribbon. So all of that is all I have left to do other than sewing in the lining by hand. So we are wrapping this up. So I'm going to get this ribbon pinned in place and then sew on those waist ties. And as I'm sewing the ribbon to the dress, I will be sewing through all layers, including the lining. So this is what will attach the outer dress to the lining and make sure everything stays nice and secure. Okay, so here is the current status on the dress. It's just making me so happy. It's so bright and summery looking. I actually think that this part with the ribbon on the waistline was the hardest part for me to do because I was so worried about keeping all of the layers where they needed to be, but it turned out well. I do need to press this down. Oh, I wanted to show you the bow too. Isn't this cute? The little waist tie on the back. So I am going to get the lining sewn in. I'm going to make a little coffee and get the hand sewing done, and then the dress will be done. I am so excited. A bit of a latte art fail today, but it looks delicious. Okay, so the dress is done. Oh my goodness, I love how long it is. I love all of the details, and I'm so excited because my sister actually needed a little bit of help with a photo shoot this evening. So I'm going to go help her, and then we'll get some footage of this dress so you can see a little bit better. But oh my goodness, how much fun is this?
Side by side we always way there in all the colors. Summer love, lonesome dove, folded on the lawn chair in all the colors.
Alright friends, that is going to be it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed this sewing project and working on it with me. I am so happy with the way it turned out and I can't wait to wear it for my birthday. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check them out at the link down in the description box to get that 1 month free trial, and I will talk to you in a new sewing video very, very soon. Bye!
I could